Here I'm going to show how you can use the value and trace commands on the calculator to find the values or outputs of a function from the graph screen. Our sample problem will be given the function f of x is negative 0.5x squared plus 7x plus 12. Use the graphing features of the calculator to evaluate f of negative 2, f of 1.573, and f of 20. Now we could easily complete these exercises from the home screen, but I want to show how we can use the graphing features. So first thing I will do is I'm going to show how to use the value command, and I will first input the function in the y equals screen. So turning the calculator on, pressing y equals, and inputting the function negative 0.5x squared plus 7x plus 12. Now I'm going to graph the function, and my window is the standard window right now. So the standard window means the x min negative 10, x max is 10, and the scale, the markings on the x-axis are 1s, and same on the y's. Y min negative 10, y max 10, y scale is 1. And I'll graph from that screen, from that window, and what I can see is I don't have much of the graph. So I'm going to adjust the window. I'm expecting this quadratic, I know this is a quadratic function, and so I know it's going to have a highest point or a lowest point. Since the a coefficient is negative, I know it's opening down, so I expect this curve to be increasing for a while, hit a high point, and then decrease. So I'll adjust the window some. Let's change the x maximum from 10. Let's change that to 30. And I'm going to change the scale on the x's so I don't have a bunch of little marks. Let me change it to 5. For the y's, I'm going to leave the y minimum at negative 10. Let me adjust the y maximum. Let's be consistent to start off with. I'll go ahead and change the y maximum to 30 as well. And I'll change the scale to 5 on the y-axis as well. And let me regraph it. So that's a better picture of the graph. I don't see the highest point yet, and I could adjust the window again if I really wanted to see that, but I've got a much better picture. So now I've input the function, and I've graphed the function, and I've adjusted the window to get a better picture of the curve. So now I'm going to use the Calc menu to use the trace command. I will go to the Calc menu by pressing second and the trace button. So second is the blue key, and trace is on the top row, fourth from the left. I'm going to select the value command, which is the first option. So I'm on 1 here. I can just press enter, and it's telling me, it's asking, what is the x value? So I can now input an x value. If I wish to find f of negative 2, I will type in negative 2 and press enter. And so what this tells me is that f of negative 2 is negative 4. And I'll repeat the process for f of 1.573. Second, trace to bring up the Calc menu, value, and now x is 1.573, and press enter. And here it gives me an approximation, and so I'll go ahead and approximate this sum. F of 1.573 is approximately 21.774. And then finally, f of 20, second, Calc, enter, type in the 20, 48, f of 20, negative 48. f of 20 is negative 48. Now notice that I cannot actually see that point. It's not shown on the screen because my y minimum is not large enough. If I actually wanted to see that point on the screen, I would have to adjust my window. So that was one option, using the value command. We could also use the trace command. The beginning is exactly the same. We input the function, we graph the function, then adjust the window. And so there's the graph. Now if I just press the trace button, it brings me to a point on the curve. And so I was near the point, the previous point was 20, -48, so it brought me to a point near the curve. And what I can do is I can move left or right as I want, and I can trace the curve. And it'll continue showing me points on the curve. Now what's nice about the trace command is from this screen, once you've pressed trace, it behaves like the value command. I can just type in x values from here and then press enter. So if I just press -2, it brings up the prompt x equals. So there's the x equals -2, and I press enter, and it shows me that specific point on the curve, -2, -4. And again, now from here, I could continue to trace from here if I wanted. But again, once I'm in trace, I can press in 1.573 and press enter, and it'll bring me to that point on the curve. This can be especially useful for finding the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, I can just evaluate the function at 0. So if I just hit 0 and press enter, it'll bring me to the y-intercept. So I also know that f of 0 is 12. So those were some examples of how you could use the value and trace commands to find outputs of a function from the graph screen.